Hi, greetings, true believers. We'll look at Phase 4 of the MCU now continues on with Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. America Chavez and a version of Stephen Strange are chased by a demon in the space between universes while searching for the Book of Ashanti. Strange is killed and Chavez accidentally creates a portal that transports herself and Strange's corpse to Earth 616. With that universe's version of Strange rescues Chavez from another demon with help from Wong, the Sorcerer Supreme. Chavez explains that the beings are hunting her because she has the power to travel through the multiverse. Recognizing witchcraft runes, Strange consults Wanda Maximoff for help but realizes that she is responsible for the attacks. After acquiring the Darkhold and becoming the Scarlet Witch, Maximoff believes that controlling Chavez's powers will allow her to reunite with Billy and Tommy, the children she created during her time in Westview. When Strange refuses to surrender Chavez, Maximoff attacks Kamar-Taj, killing many sorcerers. Chavez accidentally transports herself and Strange to Earth 838, while Maximoff uses the Darkhold to dreamwalk, taking control of her Earth 838 counterpart, who lives a suburban life with her own Billy and Tommy. After a surviving sorceress sacrifices herself to destroy the Darkhold and break the dreamwalk, enraged Maximoff forces Wong to take her to Mount Wundagore, the source of the Darkhold's power, to re-establish the dreamwalk. While searching for help, Strange and Chavez are apprehended by Earth 838's Sorcerer Supreme, Carl Mordo, and brought before the Illuminati, a group consisting of Mordo, Peggy Carter, Blackguard Boltagon, Maria Rambeau, Reed Richards, and Charles Xavier. They explain that through reckless use of their universe's Darkhold in an attempt to defeat Thanos, Earth 838's Strange triggered a universe-destroying incursion. After defeating Thanos, the Illuminati executed their Strange to prevent him from causing more harm. Mordo believes that Earth 616's Strange is similarly dangerous, but Maximoff reestablishes her dreamwalk at Mount Wundagore and arrives at her 838 counterpart's body before they can pass judgment. She brutally kills all the Illuminati except Mordo, whom Strange subdues before fleeing with Chavez. The two escape help from the Earth 838 version of Strange's ex-fiancée, Christine Palmer, a scientist working with the Illuminati. Strange, Chavez, and Palmer enter the series between universes to find the Book of Ashanti, which is the antithesis of the Darkhold, but Maximoff appears and destroys it. She then takes over Chavez's mind, using her powers to send the others to an incursion-destroyed universe. Strange defeats the destroyed universe's Strange, who has been corrupted by his universe's Darkhold, and uses it to dreamwalk into the body of his deceased counterpart on Earth 616. With Wong's help, Strange saves Chavez from Maximoff as she tries to take Chavez's power and encourages Chavez to use her abilities. She transports Maximoff to Earth 838, where she sees Billy and Tommy recoil from her in fear while crying for their real mother. Realizing the error of her ways, Maximoff relents and uses her powers to bring down Mount Wundagore, simultaneously destroying all copies of the Darkhold throughout the multiverse and apparently sacrificing herself in the process. Yeah, but I don't know about that. Chavez returns Strange and Palmer to their respective universes. Sometime later, Kamar-Taj is under repair and the surviving sorcerers, joined by Chavez, continue training. Strange develops a third eye as a result of using the Darkhold and dreamwalking into a corpse. In a mid-credits scene, Strange is approached by a sorceress who warns him that his actions have triggered an incursion that he must help fix. Strange follows her into the dark dimension. Bum bum bum. So now let's take a look at the production of this film, beginning with the development. Dr. Strange's co-writer C. Robert Cargill stated in April 2016 that Marvel Studios felt some initial ideas for the film from him and director Scott Derrickson highlighted too much of the weird stuff associated with the comic book character Doctor Strange to feature an origin story, but told the duo to hold on to them for potential future films. Derrickson revealed in October that he had plans for a sequel, expressing his love for the character and the visual possibilities that come with him. Derrickson in the first film was the tip of an iceberg. There's so much progress that can be made. He wanted to follow the example of The Dark Knight, introduce the villain in the sequel that allowed him to go deep and have a more visceral experience. Star Benedict Cumberbatch has signed on for at least one more Doctor Strange film. Derrickson expressed interest in having the villain Nightmare and exploring the characters Jonathan Pangborn and Hamir after their small roles in the first film. He explained that he had been kept in the loop on how the Avengers films were using Strange due to his close relationships with Joe Russo, the co-director of Avengers Infinity War and Avengers Endgame, and Marvel Studios president Kevin Feige. Doctor Strange co-writer John Spates expressed interest in seeing the character Clea appear in a sequel. In April 2017, Derrickson was reported to be returning for a sequel, beginning work after fulfilling his commitments to the television series Lock and Key. By December 2018, Derrickson quietly finalized the deal to direct the sequel, with Cumberbatch, Benedict Wong, and Rachel McAdams reprising their respective roles of Dr. Stephen Strange, Wong, and Christine Palmer. Marvel was beginning to search for a writer, with The Hollywood Reporter stating the script would be written throughout 2019 for a planned filming starting in early 2020 and potential release date in May 2021. Feige and Derrickson officially announced the sequel at San Diego Comic-Con in July 2019, revealing the title would be Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness and confirming a release date of May 7, 2021. Derrickson wanted the sequel to be the first scary Marvel Cinematic Universe film and explore more of the gothic and horror elements from the comic books than the first installment did. Co-producer Richie Palmer explained that the film would use the multiverse and explore each definition of the word madness and the idea that the scariest monsters are the ones that dwell within us. Feige revealed that the Disney Plus series WandaVision would directly set up the film, with Elizabeth Olsen reprising her role of Wanda Maximoff / Scarlet Witch from the series. Additionally, the concept of the multiverse was introduced to the MCU in the first season of Loki, and explored further in the film Spider-Man No Way Home, which is set before Multiverse of Madness as sees Cumberbatch reprising his role as Strange. After Loki's first season finale was released, Tom Hiddleston was reported to be reprising his role as Loki in Multiverse of Madness, but ultimately did not appear. Jade Haley Bartlett, an up-and-coming screenwriter, was hired to write the sequel's screenplay in October 2019. In December, Feige described the multiverse as the next step in the evolution of the MCU, and said this film would crack it wide open in a way that would have repercussions for the Disney Plus series and the next films in the Marvel Studios Phase 4 slate. Later in the month, he clarified that the sequel will not be a horror film, as some reports had described it following the Comic-Con announcement, but it would be a big MCU film with scary sequences. Feige compared these sequences to the films Raiders of the Lost Ark, Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, Gremlins, and Poltergeist, and said Derrickson would be good at being legitimately scary due to his background making horror films. Feige also revealed that the film introduced several surprising new characters to the MCU, including the Marvel Studios have been looking for a way to use in an MCU film for some time. This was later revealed to be America Chavez, who was included because their powers are related to the multiverse. Chavez's co-creator Joe Casey was not paid for the character's appearance in the film after he rejected a compensation offer from Marvel Comics that he described as a pittance. And now on to the pre-production. In January 2020, Marvel Studios and Derrickson announced they would no longer direct the film due to creative differences. In separate statements, they said they were both thankful for their collaboration so far, and Derrickson would remain an executive producer on the film. This was not expected to delay filming, which was set for May 2020. Cargo explained that he and Derrickson conceived a story that went in a different direction from what Marvel wanted, and the pair had not yet written a draft of the screenplay, so the final film would not be derivative of their work. Derrickson said leaving the film was a difficult decision, but he did not want to compromise on a film that was different from what he wanted to make. His choice to leave was made easier by the fact that he was able to immediately begin work on The Black Phone, another film he wanted to make. Cumberbatch was not consulted regarding the director change and said he was sad to hear about it, but he respected the decision and how it was handled. Some reports suggest that Derrickson left the film because he wanted to make a no-holds-barred, weird, gnarly, scary movie, similar to A24's films The Witch or Hereditary, and Marvel Studios now wanted to go in that direction. But Feige denied this and said that the studio loved that idea. He explained that it was their intention for their film to serve as a guide into a much creepier side of the MCU, even after Derrickson's departure, and they wanted to explore the mind-bending, frightening side of the multiverse. Sam Raimi entered negotiations to take over as director by early February. At that time, Chiwetel Ejiofor was expected to reprise his role as Carl Mordo. McAdams was no longer expected to appear, and Michael Waldron was hired to rewrite the film's script after serving as head writer of Loki's first season. Raimi sat down to direct the film a few weeks later. He had been elected to direct another Marvel superhero film after the mixed critical reaction to Spider-Man 3, feeling that he needed a break from that genre. But he accepted the job because of the challenge of getting the film into production right away, and because he was a fan of the Doctor Strange character and Derrickson's work on the first film. Raimi was curious how making big-budget films had changed his prior film, Oz the Great and Powerful, and he also had to familiarize himself with the existing MCU storylines and characters for the film. Waldron had 3 weeks to write a new script draft based on the work done by Derrickson and Bartlett. He said this was almost impossible, and Raimi felt very pushed and panicked to try to meet the May 2020 production start date. The COVID-19 pandemic began to impact film productions during those first 3 weeks, and pre-production started taking place remotely. Filming was initially still on track to begin in May 2020, until Disney shifted much of their Phase 4 slate of films due to the pandemic, moving Multiverse of Madness' release date to November 5, 2021. Raimi was relieved by this delay, which gave him and Waldron the opportunity to start writing the script from scratch in a reasonable time and make the film their own. Waldron watched the director's Spider-Man films so he could identify Raimi's strengths and write toward them. He described Multiverse of Madness as Raimi's return to big superhero movies, and said it would have every aspect of a Sam Raimi film, including a slightly scary direction, which he felt Raimi had a strong track record with. Palmer said Waldron's work introducing the multiverse in Loki allowed Marvel Studios to jump into telling a good story, without having to re-explain those ideas for the audience, and helped to bring a lot of heart to the sci-fi concepts. Waldron also used his experience from writing the series Rick and Morty, which helped introduce these big sci-fi concepts in ways that were digestible, palatable to the audience, and without them getting bogged down in the boring details. Rather than just explaining the stakes of the film, Waldron saw the multiverse as the emotional heart of the story that could be used in personal ways, such as using what-ifs and alternate versions of characters to reflect on the film's protagonists, and exploring the characters' right or wrong choices through their alternate versions. Waldron watched Doctor Strange several times, saying he became a student of that film to understand Strange's story in the original. He also looked at how the character had developed through his other MCU appearances, and Raimi praised how Waldron's imagination and knowledge of Marvel history contributed to the script. The creative team saw early production work for the animated series What If to learn how Strange was portrayed in that series. Waldron described Maximoff as the best bullet they had, and said she was destined to become a villain in the MCU, as she did in the comics, especially after the WandaVision revealed to her that the family she's built is not real. Then she gets the Darkhold and learns that there is a real version of her children out there. And if you've got the Book of the Damned whispering in her long enough that your kids are out there and you could go get them, maybe that could push you to do some terrible things. If she became a villain at the end of the film, he knew the project would get to have the fun of using her as a villain. He also wanted to avoid the film getting overstuffed by adding a different multiverse-related villain such as King the Conqueror. It felt that this would create a watered-down version of Wanda who wouldn't be the protagonist, and she wouldn't really be the antagonist. Also was hesitant about playing the villain after believing that she would just be in an ensemble thing, but she came to feel that the combination of WandaVision and Multiverse of Madness gave her an opportunity to create a sympathetic character in the series who the audience would therefore have conflicted feelings about when seeing the film. Waldron worked closely with Olsen and WandaVision head writer Jack Schaefer to ensure Maximoff's story was a satisfying continuation of the series, while Raimi also said the series despite not fully seeing it, particularly key moments that directly impacted their plans for the film, to make sure the film maintained a proper through line and character growth dynamic for a character. It was important to Olsen that the film not repeat what was done in WandaVision, instead be an evolution of the character, and she requested several adjustments to the script to avoid moments that she found too similar to the series. To justify the many killings that Maximoff commits in the film, also focused on the character's perspective of those people being in her way, and listening to her after the loss of her children in the series. After her planned appearance by Cumberbatch in WandaVision was removed late in the development of the series, rewrites to the Multiverse of Madness script were required, which Feige described as a wonderful combination of very dedicated coordination and chaos. These changes included how Strange and Maximoff meet in the film. The story of Multiverse of Madness is still set up by WandaVision, but the film was developed to also work for viewers who did not watch the series. For consistency with the Darkhold's appearance, the film's props department designed the prop that was used for WandaVision and reused it for the film. After writing his first draft, Waldron felt the film needed to go get drunk and find the madness in the multiverse by introducing alternate versions of known Marvel characters. This led to the direction of the Illuminati, a secret society from the comics. Waldron had been watching the film Aliens as inspiration for the script's thriller tone, and enjoyed how the baddest space marines just get slaughtered by the titular aliens to set the latter up as scarier villains for the rest of that film. He wanted to do something similar to Maximoff by introducing the Illuminati as a group of characters that fans would be excited to see and then have Maximoff kill them all. The idea of Strange taking control of a dead body for the end of the film came from Waldron and Palmer discussing how he would be able to confront Maximoff from a different universe, with the corpse of another version of Strange having already been established at the start of the film. Raimi, Feige, and Cumberbatch were all excited for the idea, despite Raimi initially wanting to avoid a zombie sequence to not repeat what he had done with previous zombie films. The film's release date was shifted again at the end of April 2020, set to March 25, 2022, after Sony Pictures rescheduled Spider-Man No Way Home to the November 2021 date. Until then, Waldron had been writing the script expecting Multiverse of Madness to be released before No Way Home. He was in contact with No Way Home writers Chris McKenna and Eric Summers throughout the writing process. After the release date changed, they adjusted their scripts so instead of Multiverse of Madness blowing the lid on Multiverse, it would pick up after No Way Home with Strange already having multiverse experience. This change had a knockdown effect on the rest of the script. There have been early plans to introduce America Chavez in No Way Home. Raimi noted that where No Way Home saw different characters from other universes enter the MCU, Multiverse of Madness features characters from the MCU entering the multiverse and exploring different universes. Ejiofor confirmed his involvement in June, and I'm sorry if I mispronounced his name here. Xochitl Gomez joined the cast in October. Cumberbatch revealed that month that filming would start in London by the beginning of November, with the production not impacted by a national lockdown in England that was set for November 5th to December 2nd due to increased COVID-19 cases. And now on to the filming. Principal photography began in November 2020 in London under the working title Stellar Vortex. Filming was delayed from an initial May 2020 start date due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Also began filming her scenes by November 25th, shooting back-to-back with WandaVision, and found an odd transition from the series back to starring in an MCU film. At the beginning of December, filming was taking place at Longcross Studios in Longcross, Surrey, where several New York City blocks and sets for the Sacred Sanctorum were built by production designer Charlie Woods. McAdams soon signed on to return as Palmer, shortly before Feige officially confirmed her involvement on December 10th, along with that of Ejiofor, Wong, and Gomez. You'll see that Gomez will portray America Chavez. Cumberbatch had begun filming scenes by then, after completing his work on No Way Home. He said the film was more collaborative than his previous MCU appearances, for which he felt like he was just along for the ride. Many of the actors, including Olsen, Cumberbatch, and Wong, were excited to be working with Raimi. The director said many dimensionalized visuals were used during the shooting to tell the film's story, as he was able to use his preferred camera techniques, such as using the camera and perspective to create a feeling of anxiety for our audiences. John Matheson served as cinematographer and shot the film with Panavision DXL2 IMAX certified cameras. Raimi encouraged improvisation, explaining that the cast could adapt their interactions due to their knowledge of their own characters, and the script often changed shortly before filming for those scenes began. The ending of the film was still up in the air when filming began, and Cumberbatch said it took some time for the team to decide on which one tied together all of the characters' stories. Waldron explained that they felt the ending was too happy following all the bad shit that happens in the film, and wanted to show that Strange would suffer consequences for his actions, including possessing of the corpse of a different version of himself, which I did more disappointing from the first film, The Bill Comes Due. This led to an added scene where Strange develops a third eye in his forehead. Waldron felt that this was the sort of twist that horror films often end on. Elaborating on that tone, also said they were going for a horror show vibe, comparing it to Raimi's Evil Dead films with aspects of the horror genre such as Constant Fear. She felt it was more than a glossy Indiana Jones movie and would be darker than those films, with Raimi trying to make the scariest Marvel movie and create as much tension for the audience as possible. Olsen shot for 3 weeks before pandemic restrictions increased near the end of December due to surge of COVID-19 cases in the United Kingdom, with another lockdown in England announced from January 6, 2021. Filming resumed in early 2021, and at some point, Cumberbatch had to temporarily pause filming after being in close contact with a member of the production who had a false positive test. In mid-March, Cumberbatch said they were in the middle of production, and G4 had begun filming scenes in London by then. Filming occurred at Broomfield Hill Car Park in Richmond Park for the week of March 25th. Shooting took place at Freemasons Hall, London for a few weeks in April. On April 15th, Feige said they were in the final week of filming, with shooting taking place from that day until April 17th at Burrows Hill Cider Farm in Somerset. Jack Howell and Julian Hillard, who sprightly portrayed Maximoff's sons Tommy and Billy in WandaVision, were reportedly on set of the farm and were confirmed to be in the film in April 2022. Now finally on to the post-production. Bob Murawski and Tia Nolan served as editors of the film. Some additional photography had been completed by mid-September 2021, with Olsen and Wong completing their work. The film was once again delayed in October, this time to May 6, 2022. Later that month, Cumberbatch said they were in the middle of more additional photography, with further reshoots for November and December, over at least 6 weeks in Los Angeles. The Hollywood Reporter said this photography was significant and included 2 weeks dedicated to filming that could not be completed during principal photography because of actor availability issues and COVID-related slowdowns. Cumberbatch confirmed the reshoots were being used to make adjustments to already shot material, but also filmed parts that were just impossible to do during principal photography because of logistics, COVID, etc. The Hollywood Reporter later reported that the reshoots would allow the film to have more fun with the multiverse by adding more cameo appearances and variants of established characters, similar to No Way Home and the first season of Loki. The film's teaser trailer was released in late December and confirmed the involvement of Michael Stuhlbarg as Nicodemus West, reprising his role from Doctor Strange. It was also revealed that Cumberbatch would portray multiple versions of Strange in the film. The reshoots wrapped during the week of December 13th, but additional filming continued in early January 2022. The latter was completed by January 8th. By the end of the month, Raimi had assembled a cut of the film that we presented to test audiences, and so there was potential for more reshoots to occur if the test screens found that clarification or improvement were needed. Cumberbatch was working on further reshoots in the United Kingdom by March 13th. Patrick Stewart, who portrayed Charles Xavier / Professor X in the X-Men films, was revealed to be appearing in the film in an undisclosed role with the release of the full trailer in February 2022. Stewart was believed to be reprising the role of Xavier, which had previously been the subject of speculation. A poster for the film, released at the same time, additionally teased the inclusion of Captain Carter, a character who was introduced in What If. Stewart initially denied that he was in the film, but soon admitted that he was. The trailer also revealed Topo... I'm sorry, I'm mispronouncing this. Nero would reprise his role of Pamir from Doctor Strange. A creature resembling prominent Doctor Strange villain Shumagorath appears in the film, but is given the name Gargantos, which comes from a different comic book character because the rights to the name Shumagorath belong to heroic signatures. Gargantos' eye was modeled after that of Olsen's in order to foreshadow her role as the film's antagonist. The cosmic entity, the Living Tribunal, also makes a brief appearance. Discussing Stewart's involvement, as well as assumptions based on the trailer that the Illuminati would be appearing in the film, Palmer said portraying actors would not necessarily be portraying characters that had been seen before, and if Marvel Studios were to introduce the Illuminati, they would do a more MCU-driven version of the group. The Illuminati's appearance was officially confirmed in March, and features actors portraying new versions of their characters from previous projects. Stewart plays a new version of Xavier that combines elements from his previous appearances, including line of dialogue from X-Men Days of Future Past, with elements from X-Men the Animated Series. Adjuvant plays a new version of Mordo. Haley Atwell portrays Captain Carter after voicing the What If version. Lashana Lynch portrays a different version of Maria Rambeau / Captain Marvel, the one she portrayed in Captain Marvel. Nancy Mount plays an alternate version of Black Ogre Boltgon / Black Bolt from his role in the Marvel's ABC television series Inhumans. Also in the group is John Krasinski as Fantastic Four member Reed Richards. Krasinski had been a popular suggestion for the role by fans for some time, especially since the announcement of a new Fantastic Four film set in the MCU. When Lynch was approached to return, She assumed she would be playing an sister of Rambo and was surprised to learn that she would be an alternate version of Captain Marvel. The Illuminati sequence was filmed in pieces, with many of the actors not being on set together. Krasinski's footage was filmed during reshoots to replace the planned cameo appearance by Daniel Craig, who chose not to film the role because he did not believe a single day of filming was worth the risk of catching COVID-19 and spreading it to his family. Craig was reportedly said to portray the character Baldur the Brave in the scene. Olsen never actually met Krasinski while shooting the scene in which Scarlet Witch kills Richards. Olsen filmed the scene instead with a stand-in. Walter said the final line about the Illuminati was similar to the one in his first draft, but with some other suggestions coming from Feige. Walter considered including Namor, a member of the Illuminati in the comics, but Marvel had other plans for him in the MCU. Walter's first draft also included an Earth A3 counterpart of Evangeline Lilly's Hope Van Dyne / the Wasp as a member of the Illuminati. He would be killed by Maximoff clapping her hands to kill her. Storyboards by artist Soren Brandt for the Illuminati massacre scene suggest that, in addition to Baldur the Brave, an Earth A3 counterpart of Obadiah Stane / Ironmonger, who was previously portrayed by Jeff Bridges in Iron Man, was also considered for the group's lineup. There were also rumors that Tom Cruise would be playing an alternate version of Tony Stark / Iron Man, and a superior Iron Man in the film after being in contention for the role back in the 1990s before Robert Downey Jr. was cast as the title character in 2006. Walter expressed interest in the idea, but Cruise was never approached due to his filming schedule for Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1 and Part 2. Other rumors about potential cameos include the appearance of Ryan Reynolds reprising his role as Wade Wilson / Deadpool for Fox's Deadpool and Deadpool 2. Walter confirmed there had been discussion about bringing Reynolds in to play Deadpool, but they decided that the film was not the right place to feature him. Another character introduced to the film was Clea, with Charlize Theron cast in the role. Walter said they wanted to include her in the film but they felt they needed to resolve Strange's relationship with Christy Palmer first, so the character's introduction was saved for the mid-credits scene to set her up as a new potential love interest in a future story. Industrial Light and Magic, Digital Domain, Framestar, Luma Pictures, Capital T, Sony Pictures Imageworks, WetFX, Trickster, Crafty Apes, and Perception worked on the visual effects of the film, in which an estimated 2,000 VFX shots were created. Framestar worked on the multiverse jumping sequence with Strange and Chavez, while Luma Pictures worked on the Gargantos fight scene. Perception also designed the film's main and title sequence, which replaced colorful Rorschach test visuals because Raimi wanted the sequence to complement and contrast the film. Graham Churchyard served as costume designer and created most of the costumes for the film, with the exception of those intended for Black Bolt and Richards, both of which could not be completed in time due to travel restrictions caused by the COVID-19 pandemic, and done through the use of visual effects instead. In late August 2022, Waldron revealed that one of the first drafts of the film's script included a post-credit scene involving seemingly alive Richards, but the idea was scrapped. Gomez knew that Marvel asked for numerous rewrites of the script from Waldron. So overall, I really do enjoy this movie a lot, and yeah, it's definitely the scariest MCU film, bar none, so yeah. So overall, I give Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness 5 Captain America shields out of 5. Well, anyway, tune in tomorrow as we take a look at the penultimate film in phase for the MCU, Thor: Love and Thunder. So until then, in the words of the late great Stan Lee, Excelsior!